Allegis Global Solutions presents the Subject to Talent podcast, a hub for global workforce leaders to unleash the power of human enterprise. Listen in as we explore the most innovative and transformational topics impacting businesses today.
Hi, I'm Jessie Gunther. I'm the Vice President of Client Delivery here at Allegis Global Solutions, and I'm thrilled to host this episode of AGS's Subject to Talent podcast featuring Dr. Mike Horne. Dr. Mike transformed decades of experience in HR, talent acquisition, and organizational development into a career devoted to executive coaching, leadership development, and organizational transformation. He's a best-selling author of Integrity by Design and has recently released The People Dividend, which outlines leadership strategies for inspiring employees to reach their highest potential. He's also the host of the People Dividend podcast, which focuses on the ROI of investing in employees' growth and well-being. Welcome to the Subject to Talent podcast, Mike.
Hey, Jessie. I'm so delighted to be here with you and to be in conversation with you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that Allegis Global Solutions provides through this podcast and how it helps all of us in the HR and the people and culture communities and in the leadership communities. So I'm just so grateful to be here, Jessie, and to speak with your audience and with you today. And, full disclosure, at some point, I certainly worked in lots of organizations where Allegis was a service provider and, lots of good experiences there. So it was really great, really welcoming for me to see the invitation from Allegis and from you, Jessie, to participate in the Subject to Talent podcast.
Great. Well, that gratitude is very mutual, Mike, and certainly you've had a storied career with some amazing brands, and yes, many of those have been mutual clients for Allegis. So thanks again for being here. We like to start our episodes by asking our guests the same first question. So we'd love for you to tell us about your professional journey and how it's led you to where you are today.
It's interesting. I was out on a hike yesterday with a club that I belong to, and someone turned back to me and said, "Oh, you've led an interesting life." And I always wondered about that. In psychology, you learn when somebody says interesting, dig deeper, right? What does that mean? So for me, I was always interested in conflict resolution, how people solve their conflicts. And I started off in labor relations and actually was lucky enough to meet Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and work in the United Farm Workers organizing efforts. And I think all of that led to, my start in human resources, which was employee relations, labor relations. But after, several years of dealing with people who were constantly in conflict, I thought, there must be a better way for this. So I went into a organization development, learning and development career, and I've led HR teams in some very large organizations. And that brings me to where I am today as a coach, mentor, and teacher. I'm a full-time faculty member and program director at Golden Gate University for our HR programs and our leadership programs, active contributor to the HR field. So I give expression to what I think I'm good at, coaching, mentoring, and teaching.
Absolutely. What inspired you to write Integrity by Design and The People Dividend?
Integrity by Design was a long-term project. It took me a lot of time to write it, starts and stops. And it was really about bringing more of who you are to what you do. How can we get people to bring the best of what they do? I think about it as alignment. People, what does it mean to have integrity? It means to be authentic. It means that your words and your actions and, better yet, if your thoughts, words, and actions match. And I think it was that sense of self, the power of self, that led me to think about agency and the people dividend. I had a lot of experiences in organizations. I don't know if you've had this, Jessie, or you've experienced, you've led a lot of people, you've managed a lot of teams. Sometimes I felt just like a cog in the wheel. Like, here I was, usually a talented performer in an organization. And sometimes I think I would have bosses that, would say, let's have our one-on-one. How are you doing? And they would say, well, everything's great. That's really good. And I don't think they were ever really telling me the truth sometimes. They were managing their own careers and their own interests. These were not bad people. These were people I liked, people I still have affection for. But it was this feeling of being a cog in the wheel. And I think in the new world of work, where, remote work is a given, where there's a lot of tension around diversity. It's sort of a lightning rod for a lot of people to talk about the fundamental issues that are behind the people dividend. Dignity, kindness, and respect. I think these are timeless values that are really going to help leaders succeed in the modern workforce.
Love that. Certainly a topic very near and dear to my heart, without question.
Yeah.
Through your work, and I'm curious, as clients are engaging you, there's obviously a problem. It's usually a problem that would prompt them to reach out and say, Dr. Mike, I'm looking for some help. Whether that's in one-on-one executive coaching or a leadership development program or full-on, organizational design. What are the challenges that these clients are asking you to help them solve today, and how does that differ from the challenges that you saw 5-10 years ago?
For me, yes, I have an engineering mentality when it comes to organization development and executive coaching, which is that problem solution orientation. There's a deficiency, there's something that's lagging. I'm not typically one of these people that starts with an appreciative kind of viewpoint, where, let's focus on everything being rosy. I'm about, let's understand the situation, let's understand the problem, if we want to call it that, and think of ways that we can use your strengths in order to break through or to solve that problem. I think the challenges that of today is that people continue to be overworked. There's always, too much to do. And there are so many tensions. One of the most downloaded resources from the Society for Human Resources Management last year, I think the most downloaded resource, was on civility in the workplace.
Interesting.
Yes. And, I have a client now. We're working on a very big project on civility in their system. So I think this, how do we talk with each other? How do we engage with each other? How do we respect each other? How do we treat each other with kindness? While these are old and timeless, I think they're really what's ahead for tomorrow's managers.
Absolutely. I want to hone in on something, Mike, that you and I were talking about offline, because I find this extremely fascinating. You had mentioned that one of the concerns that you're starting to hear from clients is something you described as the erosion of middle management. Can you talk a little bit about what that means in your context, and what are some strategies you're employing to help solve?
Well, I do a lot of work in technology, in the technology sector and in the biotech or biopharma sector. I mean, that's where most of my client work comes from. It's where much of my work experience comes from. And certainly, as organizations have increased profitability or look for measures to increase profitability, one of the things to do is to reduce headcount, reduce personnel count. It's one of the quickest ways to, showing more profitability. So, in effect, as this has been going on and as AI increases, and there seems to be fewer and fewer middle managers around in organizations. All of those people who helped employees take care of their career development, all of those managers who listen to their employees, just like, what caused me to write the people dividend. So really thinking about who are the people inside that span that three-legged stool between organization, employee, and manager. Because your VP is likely too busy, because she might have 50 people reporting. I mean, not direct reports, but 60 or 70 or 80 indirect reports. And it's a lot to get from you to her in that time. It's not that she doesn't care, or she doesn't like you, or she doesn't want you to do well or make a lot of money, or whatever the incentive system is in the organization. But she's busy herself. So we have to think, and so much of this is good because AI has made so many things more employee self-sufficient. your benefits, maybe even first level employee relations. You're talking to a bot. I don't like how my coworker smells. What do I do? Well, maybe it's a bot response. Here are 3 or 4 things you can try. So when we have this erosion of middle management, we need to make sure that we have systems that are really capable of supporting the kind of productivity we want and keeping people aligned with the mission of the organization. Because when people feel connected to something, they give more. It's the production of discretionary effort. We know that from employee engagement. All of this anti-diversity stuff today sort of rubs me the wrong way. Because I also think that we have tons of studies that say when you have a lot of diversity, it increases profitability. I'm going to go with that. I don't care so much about the words, and I do, but we are talking about differences. So middle managers often serve a function of helping people to manage those differences. So we need to think about ways, particularly if ERGs are going away and other sort of support systems. We need to think about ways that people feel supported and treated with respect.
It's so important. Yeah, it's again, we talk about these pivotal moments in time, and I think we're at that point. And my conversation with my teams right now is to read beyond the headlines.
Yeah, right.
So very important.
Right. And I think what's important, for leaders at the vice president level and above is to be consistent and stay on their message, to show this kind of empathy, to use the words that, are important in the organization. Because if I see it and hear it often enough, likely it's true and I'll believe it and it'll engender me to the mission of the organization. Absolutely. So that's what I would encourage, our leaders to do today is speak from the heart, speak rationally always, of course, but speak from the heart, let people know a little bit about you and what you care about, so that you remain approachable and you remain accessible. I always think about Allegis, I guess we talked about this earlier, is people thinking about it as a staffing company, but you gave me so much to think about in terms of thinking about Allegis as a leadership company that happens to be in the staffing, talent, recruitment, choose your word there, business. And I was thinking, you said that to me as we were preparing for this, and it really, I think it's a pretty meaningful thought. Certainly as a recruiting director or somebody who led talent acquisition teams around the world, I didn't often think about that, but it is a real act of leadership to work in this talent acquisition, recruitment, staffing business. So important for all of your clients. And
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And thank you for saying that. There isn't anything more human than leadership, and right. It transcends regional lines, countries. It has nothing to do with where we're located. So I think there is a success recipe to some degree for Allegis having stood the test of time for 40 plus years so far. And I think that's a big part of it. But we cannot be stagnant, and that, this conversation and a lot of the words you put to paper in the 2 books that you've published, I think have encapsulated a lot of the ethos that we've stood for a really long time. And we are a global company. And, it's the beautiful thing about leadership is that we can speak that language without worrying about whether or not it translates.
Yeah, certainly. That was my experience. I'm at Allegis. I was working in the U.S. I had global responsibilities. But certainly the colleague that introduced us to Allegis was from the U.K. And sure. I had a lot of experience there. And I was in an American-based company, a U.S.-based company at that time. And I think that's, it was a global connection that led us to that path.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. So when you're working with leaders within your clientele, how do you help them to build productive and innovative communities in their work?
Well, you said something that's so important, Jesse Gunther, and I think that is the word community. A lot of people talk about culture. Certainly I've done that, for a good part of my career, but certainly I think what's more important to talk about today is community. And how do we create community at work? And maybe that's more important than culture. that communities are places where people feel heard, they feel valued, they stand up, they say their name. So it's how do we begin to create these kinds of communities and organizations, particularly, when people aren't at the office and there's a lot of remote work going on in the world. And hey, in some organizations, you have people coming in every day. Hospitality, certain aspects of research and development where people are needed every day, healthcare, anything we can do to help people create community. Whether it's an organization design problem, I just finished some work with a large medical device company, and it was a redesign of their research and development department. But much of that work was about getting people in small groups and teams to talk about what worked, what didn't work, how we could improve process flows and handoffs and accountability. So it's by creating that kind of community that people sort of buy in to what otherwise, oh, here's our new organization design. Management, isn't so good. But so by creating kind of community, you get people involved in solving problems that are important to them.
Absolutely. Certainly in our industry, serving our clients is the top priority. And that is a sometimes tough balance when we are serving our clients on one hand, while also needing to invest in our internal teams and balancing those two things. How are you helping the leaders of the organizations you're working with achieve that balance?
Well, I think that challenge, the bringing more of who you are to what you do, and building results, outcomes, profitably oriented teams is a challenge that most business leaders face. And those who seem to do it successfully, those who seem to lead successfully, are those people who have this alignment, this integrity, this authenticity, that are committed to their values. And what they do is they bring the right people along with them. They get, as was Jim Collins, get the right people on the bus. What I learned from, Art Levinson when I led organization development at Genentech, and Art's was chairman of the board at Apple and on the board at Google. I ran a lot of the employee engagement stuff there. What I learned is that A players hire A players, B players hire B players. I'm not talking about the large sort of staffing events where you need, 2,000 people for an event or something. But I'm talking about the kinds of teams. So really working on this talent acquisition problem, this talent attraction problem, and then the talent development problem. I think that's how we create winning teams and winning organizations. And I think it's how leaders help to express the best of who they are, because hiring someone, developing them, bringing them along, even though you're too busy, there's no greater joy in organizational life to see your colleagues or the people that you hire do their best. And that's what creates high performing teams. It's not just necessary that they're committed to, similar goals and visions and have processes to which they agree, but it's also because they invest in their personal and professional development.
I love it. I love bring more of who you are to what you do.
Yeah.
It reminds me, we're big fans of Jim Collins over here, as most organizations are, but yeah. I do love Jim Collins. But I heard a quote, and this is not my own, but it's one of my favorites. If you can't be who you are, where you are, change where you are, not who you are.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. And it reminded me when you talked about bringing more of who you are to what you do. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So important.
So, Mike, we like to end our episodes with a bit of a look to the future, our crystal ball, if you will. How do you see organizational leadership evolving over the next 5 years or so?
Well, certain things will remain the same. The need to drive profitable enterprises, the need to help your organization to grow and to prosper, that will remain unchanged. What may change is the tone in which we do it and how we see success. I think what's going to need to happen is organizations and leaders in organizations and executives are going to need to continue to define success in ways that make sense for their environment that they work in. So in 5 years, I see I certainly see more people coming into the workforce that have technological fluency, that have global awareness, that have, that want to see innovation. And I think we need leaders who are going to be able to, to your earlier points, figure out, what technological fluency means in AI. And also, leaders who can promote connectivity and innovation. I think these are all going to be the key source of things, is really making sure that we have leaders who are adaptable, who prioritize, who understand what's going on with AI and technology, but really have the kind of connectivity with people that promotes organizational wellness and well-being.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for sharing. What should listeners do if they want to learn more about you, your books, and the work they do?
Thank you so much, Jesse. That's kind of you. The easiest way to get in touch with me is mike-horne.com, HORNE.com. That'll take you to my website. If you're really interested, you can also look on LinkedIn. I have a weekly newsletter, the Mike Horne newsletter on LinkedIn. Lots of ways to get in touch with me, but mike-horne.com, easiest way. And welcome everyone's participation. It helps me to, understand and what's going on in terms of people and culture today.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. I would love to continue this conversation on Mike Horne's People Dividend podcast.
That's great. I'm looking forward to having you as a guest.
It would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have questions, please send them to subject2talent@allegis-globalsolutions.com. Follow us on LinkedIn with the hashtag subject2talent and learn more about AGS at allegis-globalsolutions.com, where you can find additional workforce insights and past episodes. Until next time, cheers.